How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Cherry Garage. Today we're doing a little bit of work on Trevor's Datsun 240Z.
So we are ripping the entire dash out of my car and gonna be taking that ugly dash pad off and doing a bit of restoration work. Also putting some pretty gauges on it, or in it.
So we're gonna do a little time lapse right now of us taking the dash out and the seats out so we can start working on that. And we'll get to wiring and showing you all the details, so. Just put it on our story. It's like, how long's it gonna be there?
A while.
So we got the good view now. And there's the blower motor.
Gear core's in here.
Sweet.
Oh yeah, you can tell that needs to be changed.
Does it lay flat?
I think it lays at an angle because there's one of the. Okay. I've never taken a heater core out on one of these, so. Yeah, this thing definitely needs some interior work. I need to spray some adhesive up there so that'll stay up.
So the dash had a cover put on by the previous owner, and Trevor's gonna take this off and restore the original dash. And meanwhile, we're gonna be switching out these 3 gauges with the gauges he has over there, and these 2, speedo and tack, with a yellow tack and a GPS speedometer. We're doing the dash repair now.
Getting started.
Yeah, when we were taking off that last cover, some chunks of the dash popped off with it, like this.
Is there already glue on that one?
Yeah, we glued them together so they're drying. And then Trevor's gonna come through and Dremel these out so he can fill it. He got the stuff grinded out to get ready for putting filler in, and now he's just cleaning up the surface for all the prep work for it. We glued in a little bit of a mesh on that crack.
I wish I got on probably within 2 hours match with someone.
Oh, that's working.
Out there. Either swipes or lights or something like that.
So now we're dealing with the gauge cluster in the center of the console. Each one's a little different, but they all have the same front plastic piece, and these backing pieces are what's different. But we have one apart right here. We're gonna keep the chrome that it came with. It looks pretty good. And then you cut out the gauge separator from the inside with a Dremel, and it leaves these plastic nubs in there, which basically line up perfectly to center this in it. And it just so happens that this back plate smashes it together perfectly. So we're gonna drill a hole on the back of this for this grommet to come through, feed the wires through and close it together, put some foam tape just to hold it in place, and it'll be good to go. All right, so here we got the mocked up version with the back plate on, wires running through with the grommet.
There's a whole bunch of pieces that went to it. This is the main part that you see inside the car. And this is the main part in the back that secures it into the dash and where all your wires feed through. In between those 2 parts is this little piece, and it fits in here like so to kind of get everything mounted up and smooth out the difference here. So what we've decided to do is go ahead and ditch the billet aluminum, even though it's nice and pretty. It just was going to cause a lot of issues for us, and the contrast between this gauge here, nice yellow tack to match the yellow paint, will look good with the contrast in the black. So once we're all done, we're gonna get it mounted in here. And that's kind of what it's gonna look like.
Oh, you saw me in the reflection? How embarrassing. Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
It's sharp, you know?
Yeah.
So to make this all work, we're gonna have to, since we're taking out this bezel, glue in our cover. We're also gonna have to glue in this piece on top of this to make that fit. Obviously everything all centered. And lastly, we will have to Dremel out some of the old threads that mounted the bezel so that they can fit down into this backing plate and do so nicely squared and even.
We've got the gauge side over here. So we went back around the rim of each of these with the epoxy to seal it all in and give a good bonding surface.
Yeah, we also sealed it just so that no dust in the future or moisture gets inside the gauge, so that they always look pristine and brand new.
Yep. But I've been tinkering a little bit, measuring out where these little dimples need to be cut out for the gauges to fit into the existing housings and for it all to match together. So there's those little notches that need to be filed down, dremeled down. And then I've got the speedometer backing. I had to cut these little metal extensions out so the gauge would fit all the way in there. And now I have a little bit more cutting on that blue mark for the GPS antenna to go to. So the whole thing fits together nicely. So Trevor's come up with a couple ideas of doing some 3D prints because he has no map light. So he brought this map light. It doesn't have a cover on it and it needs to be rewired, but it does sit underneath where the radio is, or on the top of the heater vent up here, and it has a click button. So I can 3D print a cover for that and wire it in so it'll work. And then he has another idea of doing the fuse panel. So the fuse box sits in the center console underneath the radio. And he said he doesn't really care about these lights, seatbelt light, choke light, and the switch for the rear defrost. So we're gonna Dremel that out and print a gauge pod for his 5th gauge, which I think is either the voltmeter. I think it's a voltmeter. So we'll have that there at the bottom for him to reference to and wire that up correctly. So we'll be able to get rid of some extra wiring, which is nice. And we'll see where we get today. But here it is now, all emptied out, ready to get new wiring. All right guys, we're about halfway through the second day. So we've got the gauges basically done. They're drying. The mini pod gauges, they are all done except for the one that's going to be on its own, which will be underneath the radio. So the 3 that go in the center console are finished. And then Trevor's over here, he was doing the dash filler on this. So he got the first round done, looking great. Gonna sand up the peaks and put a second layer in and then end up putting it all together.
Don't mind me stuffing my face.
But it's looking great. Next up, he's got the gauge cluster piece that's going to be a little bit more interesting to figure out. And then we got Jacob over here. He's looking at the wiring diagram. Looks like he's got a lot of notes on it and figured out what we're going to do for testing these gauges without the dash in the car, so we know the gauges work and the signal wiring works for it. And then when we plug it into the dash tech, we'll know if that wiring is bad and know how to hook it up through there. So let's take a look at the other 240. When did you buy your 240?
We got ours around the same time.
Yeah, did you? I think you got yours first, right?
Yeah, I think I got mine like a few months before you. And then
Yeah, and then I was looking for like an American muscle.
I haven't done too much in the past like 2 weeks just because of the new dog.
Oh yeah, you got a new dog.
But yeah, we're still working on that firewall floor panel.
Oh, down there. Yeah, and then you got this ready to go, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
I want to
We
watch.
can line stuff up.
All right, so we got the speedometer together. with the fuel gauge. Ready to go into the dash.
Did you guys pick it up again and touch it more?
Yeah, I did. You're gonna have to clean it off.
There's more fingerprints on it.
Yeah, I definitely did. I mean, I had to switch out the back pieces, remember?
Oh yeah, I did.
But yeah, let me see.
This is kind of like in the car, you know, with more shade. Boom.
Yeah, looks great.
Looks great.
Yeah.
So he even got a yellow tack to match his paint. And I think that's super cool. And we have it now fitted up in the OEM housing. So it's going to look, you know, OEM plus.
Yeah.
For sure.
Turn around.
So
Yeah,
this is, you can, you know, if you guys have your own Datsun and you've ever taken apart your dash, this is exactly what you're going to see. The only difference is this face and the wires are a little bit different in the back.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple other people that have used these gauges on the Datsun, and they made some videos on how to do it. And some of them include the chrome ring that comes on the gauge from Speed Hut, which gives it kind of a different look on the interior of that that pod mount. But we found that it looked better personally, and Trevor thought as well that it looked better without the chrome ring. So we found a way to basically bypass a large majority of the work that a lot of people did of like cutting the spacer ring out and gluing it behind something. So we were able to mount everything together pretty simple, just gluing a few things and cutting a few things. So,
however, for the smaller gauges, we went ahead and utilized some of the aluminum rims.
just those 3 across the top of the dash have the chrome.
Only thing that we've done on the inside so far is this billet aluminum turnstock. So we had to do a slight modification in here to get this to mount properly, but it's all in there now. I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Let us know.
I think it's cool. It's nice and weighted, so you get a nice satisfactory like feeling out of it.
You know, that thing's not gonna break, so.
Yeah.
So now Trevor has been kind of taking the lead on restoring the dash. You know, once we got it out, he went ahead and he got to work with the Dremel so that you could actually smooth this out and get this filler in there. So he has, it's basically like Bondo, but specifically for like a flexible-ish dash.
Filler.
Yeah, dash filler.
Yeah. This is layer number 2, so one more layer I think after a sanding on this and it'll be good to go.
And it's exciting to see the progress of it.
I'm really excited personally to get those gauges in there and see how it
Absolutely.
looks. Yeah.
And just so you know, the plan after this, guys, you know, one more coat, sand it down again, and, you know, if need be, we'll do more because we're going to be perfectionists. Once that's done, we're going to get flocking. What most people do where they just flock it and kind of leave it with that textured finish, we are going to actually put a clear coat on top of it so that it will lock everything in and none of it will, you know, ever flake off or dust. But we're going to do a kind of like a matte clear coat so it's not like shiny or oily looking.
We're next at the point of what we're doing. We're going to be, which we did a little bit today of actually, is looking through the wiring diagrams, which aren't that helpful, but finding all of the sensor plugs. We found some of them, finding the color codes for them, and figuring out which of the wires send what signals, powers, and grounds, so that we can correctly hook up all of these gauges, because they aren't made specifically for this vehicle. They're generic. So we have we've been doing continuity tests through plugs to those plugs because we were thinking of dry testing them on the existing wire loom coming out of the firewall of the Datsun. But we decided we're actually going to take out this entire wiring loom and fit it back into the Datsun, into the dash area, and we'll plug all the gauges in without the dash and test it all out, because we're going to be removing a lot of wires and we're going to be adding new wires. So we're going to wrap it all up nice and make it look good and organized.
A lot of this stuff won't be needed just because the difference between how we wired and did electronics in 1970s is very different from today.
It's going to look nice. It's going to work nice.
Look nice, drive nice, function nice.
Thank you guys for watching this episode. We'll be back with another episode showing you the second half of our process and hopefully the final product. So be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and check back for our next video.
Peace.